everybody, welcome to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're coming to you from underneath the Ram 3500 dually, and we are going to start our next video, which is called Driveline. First we're going to scrape off all this old sealant. You don't really need sealant on these because it's a reusable rubber coated tin gasket, but people find the need to put silicone all over it. So it's nice to see that this thing wasn't all full of shrapnel or sludge or anything like that. You can see here in this oval hole, that's one of the helical gears. This has it's a anti-spin axle, but it's not a traditional one with a clutch pack or cones. It somehow uses these helical gears. So you don't need to put the limited slip additive in it. You just normal gear lube and it works fine. Here's our cover all cleaned up. I've got our gasket cleaned up, and I'm gonna cross my fingers, touch wood, 3 Hail Marys, and we're gonna put it on dry. If it leaks, it's not that bad. We'll take it back off and put goo all over it. Well, here goes nothing. We've got everything prepared here. These bolts, whoops, I'll just get another one. These bolts go in and they get torqued to 30 foot-pounds. Now we'll get these torqued up. Now we're going to fill this axle up. It calls for, whatever this is, 75W90 synthetic gear oil. I just have this as an example. There's several ways you can fill these things up. You can get these squirt bottles and fill it up through the hole in the cover. You fill it up until it just runs out. That's the fill plug and the level plug. Or you can take the breather out if you've got room. You can't usually do this on cars, but you could do it on trucks usually. And you could squirt it down you could just leave it there like that. And it'll run down into there by itself through the breather hole. Today we have to decant it from that 5-gallon pail. So I'm going to dump it into my smaller jug. And we have pulled the speed sensor out of the top of the diff, and we're going to pour it in through there. So we'll just start pouring this in and see what happens. There it is. So we'll stick the plug in. And our rear end is full. We'll get this thing tightened up. Now we're going to get this drive shaft fixed up. A very, very popular mod on these trucks is to go with the one-piece aluminum drive shaft. I think they used on 4th gens possibly. That's $800, $1,000, even $1,200. I'm in Canada. Everything's more expensive here. So for now, there's nothing wrong with this drive shaft. The truck never shook or nothing. I've had plenty of trucks with 2-piece drive shafts. And aside from a little maintenance here and there, they've never really given me any grief. So we're going to go ahead and put joints in this. This one isn't too bad, but I'll show you some problems with the rear half of the shaft when we get to it. And we're going to put a hanger bearing on it because the rubber is all decaying on it. Look, it's just like it's falling apart. So now we got to get these clips out. Lucky this thing isn't too rusty. So I usually just give them up one whack like that. And that'll kind of just set the cap down a little bit. And it should give you some room to get this baby out. Oh, we almost got it. Okay, so needs a little help. Needs a little help just kind of getting moving here. There we go. They get stuck in there a little bit, even on ones that aren't rusty. There we go. See? Repeat times 4. I got this off of the drive shaft, and you can see here, look at the Brinelling on there. It's not from lack of lubrication. It's just from years and years and years of the thing doing its job. You'll see it's only on the drive side of the joint. See over there, there's none, but if I roll it over, you'll see it there. So this thing is definitely shot. And now we'll go ahead and get the rest of the cross out of here. I just used my either my ball joint press or a hammer and a couple of sockets. Whatever works for you. Just don't, if you're using the hammer, just be gentle. and don't smash the hell out of the yoke. I hammered the other side out. Let's see if I can get this side out with this ball joint press. So now that you can see it's just barely in there, and of course it doesn't want to come out. So I'll just grab it with a vice grip and give it a tap, and it'll come right out theoretically. Hang on, but these things are extremely hard, so it's not that easy to get a hold of it with something like a vice grip. But we're stubborn here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there it is. So now, out it comes. We didn't even have to push it back through. There we go. So that's our old joint out. There we go. So there is our old hanger bearing. So I had to cut the hanger part of it off, and I'm using this old 3-jaw puller, and it's slowly bringing it off. What I have to do is load it up and then whack it, and that gets it moving. It's just about off now. Load it up. And then if you look down in here, you'll see it move when I whack it. Oh, got this guy out. That's good. Well, there's no saving that one for a spare, but it's off. Now, this oil slinger got kind of wrecked, so it's just pressed on a shoulder here. So I'm just working it off, and then I'll get it straightened up, and we'll put it back on. Now we're gonna take apart the rear shaft. I'm gonna punch everything so I get it all back together. I'll show you the problems we're having with this. You can see here are these clips. Like that one isn't really in all the way, and it's been running like that. This one, look, like it's broken. So we're gonna get this all fixed up, start from scratch with all new joints in it, and we'll go from there. Got him. I got everything all cleaned up and give it a coat of black paint. Here's something we need to deal with. I just wanted to get this cleaned up and painted last night. But you can see here, when they broach the spline in these yokes, they go right through, and then they press a cap or a plug into the end. And this is all coated with silicone, which makes me, which gives me the impression that this has been leaking at some point. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean all this crap out of here. Look, it's not even stuck. And see what we can find out. Maybe this is why our transfer case had no oil in it. We're going to get this all cleaned out, like spotless clean. And then rather than a blob of stupid silicone, we're going to make up some JB Weld and just work it into that little groove all the way around there, and that will seal it forever. That's way better than silicone. Now we can start putting this thing back together. First we got to get this little slinger on here. And I found a piece of exhaust pipe that kind of fits over it. Which end? Nope, that end. And we'll just get this on the top of it and just tap it down. There she is. Now we're ready to push the hanger bearing on. I made up this little tool. It's got to fit over that, but fit past that slinger. Basically what we've got here is we've got between this rubber and this all intermingling, it creates a labyrinth seal that keeps junk out of the bearing. This thing isn't going to fit in my press, so we got to do it old school. So we've got a piece of wood. We don't want to be pounding the yoke into the floor. We don't want to be pounding on the yoke at all. So we've got this piece of wood up in there to support it. Now we're going to spray a little Floral Glide on here. This is just kind of pressed lube. We're going to spray some in there. And we're going to drop this baby down. We're going to put it on this way. And 3 Hail Marys. And we're going to hope we get this thing to go on. I don't think it's going to go on as hard as it came off because we've cleaned up all the rust and stuff that was down in there. But we'll find out, eh? Oh, look at that. There, you can hear it. She's bottomed out. You feel that? You can hear the tone of it change, and you can feel it when it's bottomed out. Now we got to put this little guy in. He goes down in there, and that's what the telescopic boot attaches to. And there you go, that's bottomed out. So that's our hanger bearing done. Now we'll move to the other end and get the slip yoke back on. Now we're going to start getting this thing ready to accept the U-joint. I've got this thing here. It's actually for plumbing, for cutting out floor flanges when you want to replace them. But it's also very good for cleaning out the these grooves where the clips go for the U-joint. We're not trying to cut the thing in half. We're just trying to get the junk out of the groove. And you can see there how nicely it cleaned that up. So we'll do the other one. Now I'll get a dingle ball hone and just clean out these boards. We're not interested in removing material. We just want to clean them. So here we go. We're going to start getting the U-joint into the yoke. When they've got a grease fitting in the cross like that, you see it's aiming kind of away from that, aiming back, right? And then as we put the other shafts together, we'll get it so the grease fittings are all lined up, so in one position you can hit everything. So what we're going to do, I've put a little light oil on this cap. We're just going to hold it up so that everything's straight and kind of just get it started in. And then we'll use our little press here to send it home. And we're going to push it right through the other side. Oh, it's so nice when they're not all rusty. There. So now we'll pull it out a little bit. You don't want to pull it out too far so that the needles fall down. You just want to pull it far enough that you can get the needles in this one started on without them getting all bound up. And we're going to put a little light oil on this. Same thing as the other side. We'll just kind of get it started. These big, huge U-joints are kind of a pain in the neck to get out, but they're actually quite nice to work with going back in because they're big. Now we're going to push the whole works all back to the other side. And then once we've got it close, we can put one of the clips in. There she goes. All right. So here's our clip for this side. We'll get it in. There. Now we've pushed this one so that it's pushed this cup against the clip on the other side. We'll make sure she's tight. Then we'll get it out of here and we should be able to get the clip on this side. So here we go. Let's see what happens. And you can see it went right in. Now, what we do is we just get a little punchy thing and our small little hammer. And we just go around there, see? And make sure that thing is seated all the way into that groove. Now we're going to get this guy, our slip yoke, back onto the drive shaft. So I've lined up my marks that we made when we took it apart. And in she goes. So now, same deal. And there we go. She's all back together. Now we are going to figure out which way we need the grease fitting in the next U-joint. So we got to get this thing on here. It has, you can see in there, it's got a dummy spline. So it only goes on one way to keep your drive shaft in phase. And there it is. So this grease fitting, I believe, is right there. So we're going to put a mark here. That's where we want our grease fitting, but it's going to be in this position, but facing that way. So this one's going to go in like this with the grease fitting over there and pointing back. I'm going to go through this. We'll get this, the rear drive shaft all put together. It's the exact same procedure as the front one. Well, that's those all back together. That's great. Here's our new transfer case output seal ready to go in. We've got the back side of it where the little spring is all packed with grease, and the lip is packed with grease. And I've put a little grease on the dust boot here. And lucky I found this old bearing race that fits it perfectly to drive it in. So I'm going to crawl underneath there, knock the old one out, and we'll put this guy in. There's our old one. They did a nice job siliconing it in. We won't be siliconing in the new one because it's got a ring of sealant on it from the factory. Anyway, now I got to go under there and clean up all the sealer that they had on it, and then we'll put our new one in. When you go to install these, you'll see there the dust boot has a weep hole in the bottom of it, and that, you guessed it, faces down. All right, now we'll get our special tool, a used bearing, and just tap it in. Get the front half of the drive shaft in. I don't know if this thing has got a dummy spline on it or not. I guess we'll find out. There she goes. Now the hanger bearing goes up. Yeah. And we'll just get these babies torqued up. Here's our rear drive shaft section ready to go in. What I have to do is put a little grease on the slip spline here, because unlike the old ones that have a grease fitting on this one does not. So you grease it when you got it apart. It's pretty much, that's your chance to grease it. And we remember it's got a dummy spline. It can only go in one way. Okay, so here we go. I think it goes around there like that somehow. We got to be close. Oh, one more. There it goes. All right. And then this goes up onto the axle. And we've got 4 bolts we have to get into there. We've got 4 bolts that go through this into the flange. And once we got them in, we'll torque these all to 85 foot-pounds. Last thing I got to do now is just put a couple of tie wraps around this boot to clamp it. And that'll be it for our drive shaft. Now we got to fill up our transmission. Plug on the side. And I think we need 6 of these. That's how many I got. It's good stuff, Royal Purple Synchro Max. And so it's just like the differential. You fill it up till it runs out, and that means it's full. What I'm going to do now is start it up and just let it idle, run the transmission through the gears. I would like to get the front drive shaft out for some attention, but you can see the front wheels are sitting on ramps, and I can't turn it to get at all the fasteners. So once I've got it back on the floor, we'll get the front wheels up in the air so I can turn everything. We'll get the front drive shaft out and make sure it's all okay. Now, very important before we do this, make sure it's not in four-wheel drive. I don't even know if it'll start. It's been sitting here for so long. We'll find out. Oh, there she goes. You can hear the funny noise. This brake rotor is just touching the backing plate over here. Nothing dripping. Those messes I made. We got her turned around and I've got the front of it up on stands now. So everything is free to turn. I get underneath and I'm going to get the front drive shaft out of it and we'll check that out. I've gone ahead now and pulled the front drive shaft out of this. And let me tell you, that is a fun job. From the factory, the front yoke is held to the pinion with these goofy Torx, and you can see here we had a very close call with that one. I got in, I finally got, and I would just get with the acetylene torch and just get this warmed up around here, and they came out. Part of the problem is that when it's on the truck like this, you cannot get you can't get straight at it. See, it's kind of on a, it's just really tight in there. So anyway, what everybody does is they throw these away and put a normal hex head bolt back in, and you can get in there with a socket with a wobble extension. Goes in there quite fine to tighten it up. So I'll see when I put it back together. I've got these ones, and I've got these ones with the 10 mil head. They're even better. And you don't have to worry about, although the factory ones have this shoulder, you would think that's for the shear, but it's not really. It's these teeth. They lock into teeth on the yoke. That's what transfers the torque, not the bolts. On the back, you've got just a normal M10 cap screw, and they came out easy enough. So I wanted to get this out, number one, because I wanted to make sure I could get these guys out, and they're out and they're never going back in. So that was part of the reason. And I also wanted to check these U-joints. So this one here, the front one, these are the original ones. You can see they still got these ones don't have clips. They've still got the plastic in them. And I think it started coming out probably from me maybe heating this up with the torch. But anyway, this one, it's okay this way, but it feels really rough. I could tell there's some Brinelling on it by turning it this way. So this one has to be replaced for sure. Now we can go back here and check our double cardan. And it seems to be just fine. I think we will leave well enough alone with this. These things here are kind of a love-hate. Instead of clips, they've got this plastic in there. So there's a groove in the yoke and a groove in the cup. And they inject melted plastic, and that's what locks the caps in. Now, after what I've been through on some rotten old Canadian crap, trying to get the little clips, especially internal clips, this maybe is not all that bad. But anyway, you gotta melt it out. Takes a little heat, and you'll see the stuff come out. You gotta melt both sides, and then we'll use the press to push the thing out. Oh, I can smell it already. You'll see it, and all of a sudden, it'll come out like a worm. A wormy thing. There it comes. Now we'll do the other side. Now you have to remember this thing is hot, right? So we gotta be careful. And we will try to push it out with this thing. Let's see. And you can see there's the one cup there. We should be able to grab it out with a pair of pliers. Yeah, look at that inside. All dry. Yeah, this joint was definitely roached. So we'll continue. We'll get this all apart. And then we'll get everything cleaned up and wait for our new joint to turn up. Yeah, so this was definitely beyond its best before date. Lucky for us, our U-joint showed up, and it's the right one. I've already got it installed in the flange or the yoke, whatever you want to call this. So now we're going to put it in here. This one, in lieu of the plastic stuff that we had to melt out, it uses internal clips. You see there? And aside from that, it just goes in the same as the rear ones, but the parts are a lot smaller. Oh, here we are. It's all back in. It works properly. And I did remember to, I marked it. I forgot to show you. I marked it before I took it apart. So we get everything back the same way. And it's ready to go back in. Now you can go put this thing in. The big bolts at the back torque up to 85. And like usual, the book didn't give me any spec for the bolts at the front. But we're going to torque them to 35. Last part of this job. We're going to hit everything with grease from front to back. That includes the front end, even though it's not really part of the drivetrain, but I didn't want to start greasing stuff until I knew I was completely done under there. That'll wrap it up for this one. We've got our driveline all done. New U-joints, new hanger bearing, new oil and everything. Everything's all greased up and ready to go. In the next video, we're going to do some more stuff at the back before we put the box back on, but that's it for this one. Anyway, want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, this is Kevin, Cooper, and Nugget saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.